Rating each EFL team season 24-25, part 1. Start off with Accrington Stanley and I've given them a red. Stanley finished 21st in League 2. Respectfully, I don't think many people predicted them to be in a promotion charge, but it was their off-the-field troubles that have caused them to have a pretty poor season. Their academy's closed amid financial challenges, and you have to worry a little bit for Accrington next season. On the positive side, they did get a trip to Anfield in the FA Cup. AFC Wimbledon, naturally it's a green for Wimbledon. A fantastic season for them. They finished 5th in the playoffs and went on to win every single game 1-0 and were promoted. That's quality for them, and what is really encouraging is that they actually finished the season with the lowest goals conceded. They're a solid side and that's going to do them a favour in League 1 next year. To add to that, they didn't concede against their rivals all season and beat them twice. Barnsley, it was a pretty poor season for Barnsley, it's a red. To be honest with you, I get most of my Barnsley knowledge from Callum Fowler. But that was Barnsley's worst league finish in 22 years. You expect a club like Barnsley really to be pushing for the top 6 a bit more, but what was worse is that they conceded 73 goals. Next season they need to do better, and you'd probably expect them to do better. Barrow AFC, I've gone for a yellow on Barrow. Barrow finished 16th in League 2. You've got to say Barrow are a relatively small club. Finishing 16th in League 2 is not a problem for them. On the plus side for them though, their home form was fantastic. They finished 8th in the home table and only lost one game in their final 14. Positive signs for Barrow going into probably a weaker division next season. Birmingham, it's a green, of course it is. Fair play to Birmingham, it doesn't matter how much money you splash at things. To break the EFL points record was impressive. They won the title, they're back into the Championship. With or without money, 111 points is impressive. Especially when you look at some of the clubs that are in there anyway. Blackburn Rovers, giving them a yellow. Now, if Rovers fans looked at this at the start of the season and found out they'd finished 7th, they'd probably be pretty chuffed. Or at least content. After losing Smodics in the summer, a lot of people had them on for relegation. In the end, it was that awful run in February and March that cost them. They're probably now tearing their hair out, thinking if they had picked up a few more points in that run, they'd have been in the playoffs. Blackpool, also gone for a yellow. Blackpool finished 9th in League 1, and they really struggled at the start. They appointed Steve Bruce, which was a bit of a strange appointment. But Blackpool finished the season on 16 draws. They were 12 points off the playoffs, and you've got to think if they hadn't drawn so many and picked up more wins, they could have been in there. There's a lot to build on for Blackpool next season though, and if they recruit well in the summer, they could be onto something. Bolton, I've gone with a red for Bolton. Bolton finished 8th. Now look, it was always going to be difficult for them to compete with the financial powerhouse that was Birmingham. But Bolton were still one of the favourites pre-season. To not finish in the top 6 was pretty disappointing, and to add to that, they actually finished on negative goal difference. However, you'd fully expect Bolton to improve next year and be one of the favourites again. Well, that rounds up part 1, stay tuned for part 2.